In today's lesson, we're going to talk about hip turn. You know, so many golfers struggle with being able to use their hips properly. They either overturn them where they're rotating too much, or they're sliding and losing their posture, and they just can't seem to get the hips and pelvis working properly like the good players do. You know, you see the tour players, you know, on TV, and they're rotating effortlessly, you know, through the ball and getting this terrific hip rotation and hitting these solid shots. And moving your hips properly is so important for good, solid contact. Let's watch this video of Ben Hogan. You know, he's fantastic golf swing, fantastic hip action. He used the ground so well. Really give us a good sense of how the hips should move in the golf swing and the action of that lower body. And if you're not a subscriber and you like the video and you like the content, please hit that subscribe button. We really appreciate it. It helps us grow our golf community, and we love hearing from our subscribers. If there's any tips or lessons you want to see, shoot us a message and we'll be happy to deal with them in our video series. So wasn't that something, watching the action of the legendary Ben Hogan? You know, we can't really copy these great players. We certainly learn from their pattern of motion and how we can incorporate that into our golf swing so that we can hit the ball more consistently and more solidly. So today I'm going to show you how to use your hips, and we're going to use an everyday item like a chair to give you some feedback, to help you with that hip rotation. You can practice this at home in your basement. You can practice it on the range. You know, if you're on the range, you can use your golf bag or some alignment sticks to give you some feedback. You know, chairs are handy too. If you happen to have one around on the range, they're great, or use them at home. So let's get started. So the first part of the swing where we see players struggling with the hip turn is on the backswing, where they don't know how to move the hips properly on the backswing, and they struggle with the proper hip motion. And what we see a lot of when they're swinging, and I'll use the chair to demonstrate, they're set up here and they make a swing back, and there's excessive slide where they slide too much over to their trail side and they get this drift going on. So now they're not really turning that much, they're kind of sliding, and then generally it's hard for this player to get back over to their left side, and they're not really going to rotate. They're going to tend to slide a lot more, and they kind of get stuck on the back foot. So that action looks a bit like this. So they get this bumping back into the chair, and then they fall back this way to hit the golf ball. So they're not really turning effectively to hit the ball. You know, they're not getting the proper pressure shifts in the feet to rotate, and they're not getting the proper weight transfer for solid shots. And then what happens on the follow through, what we see golfers do is they're trying to turn their hips, but they're turning them too much. So they end up doing, you know, they're swinging back, and then they end up turning backwards. They never really get forward before they start turning their hips. They end up turning from the back foot. And we got this, you can see I got this huge gap here with that chair, and I'm falling back this way. So they get this almost reverse hip turn, right? They're turning backwards away from the target. So you never really get a good pressure shift into your lead side, and it's almost impossible to strike the ball solidly when you do that. The other problem we see with golfers is it's called early extension. Some people call it a fault, but you know, it's really a swing characteristic, but where the players kind of thrust their hips too much toward the target, and that causes your pelvis and hips to kind of stall out and makes it hard to turn. And what that looks like here, I'm just going to set up here with the chair, you know, brushing my backside here. And when this golfer is swinging, they move into it like this. You know, they go quickly onto their toes, and you can see how the knees kind of sag forward, and they're like striking the ball like this. So they've moved into it quite a bit, and their hips don't really turn that much, and they get kind of stalled out here, and there's not much hip rotation, and we get this thrusting in toward the golf ball like that, and it's not very effective. Contact's not very good, and you know, you'll struggle with hitting the ball all over the club face, hitting it fat on the toe, and who knows where it's going to go, and it's really difficult to get the proper hip rotation. So we saw in that video how Ben Hogan used his lower body so effectively. So the First thing is we want to use the chair to help us with the backswing. Give us some feel for how the hips should move properly in the backswing. So I've just got the chair here. I'm going to set up. And I'm just setting it up here against my trail side, my right side. I'm a right-handed player, so I've got a little bit of a gap there. And what we see with good players, when they take that club back, there's an early pressure shift into the trail side. So it's almost like a sway. You know, they'll sway maybe a ½ inch to 1 inch into that trail foot, and then the hips will start to rotate away. So you'll see this early pressure shift. And the clubs, you know, hasn't moved that far, and already the weight's pressure's starting to move over here into this trail foot here like that. And I can feel my thigh kind of just brush the chair. I'm just kind of brushing it. I can feel that pressure there just going up against it. And then from there, as I rotate to the top, finishing my backswing, you can see how the hip is now, I've gone here, and then the hip starts to rotate back away. So that's a better hip action. That's better hip turn. So now I'm getting some good pelvis turn. Hips are starting to engage. They're actually starting to move forward before I complete the backswing, and that happens a little more naturally when I get that proper pressure shift early and then rotate away, so the trail hip starts to go forward. So I'm back here, rotate to the top. You can see how I come away from that. And then starting down, I move away from the chair quite a bit, like we saw in that video with Hogan with his tremendous lower body action, going back toward the chair, up to the top, and then move away. So now pressure starts to move from here to here. I'm starting to move into that lead side. And this way I can keep rotating my hips and pelvis. This way I can kind of keep rotating and moving into my lead side and get into this good impact position to strike the golf ball. So again, here, into the chair, turn away from it, and then move away from it, starting down. That's better hip action there, and you can see I get this good pelvis rotation, and then I get the pressure shift moving from right to left to start to move forward. The other thing you can use the chair for too is to help you with that early extension, that loss of posture when you come into the ball. Just going to set this up against my backside here so I get a little bit of feel for it. I'm just going to, you know, I'm a few inches away. I can kind of just feel the back of my hand there. I'm just away from it. I'm going to take my stance. I'm going to swing back. What I want to feel when at the top, I'm just kind of brushing it. So my backside is kind of gone toward the chair, and my right knee straightens out a little bit to accommodate some pelvis turn. So up at the top, and then starting down, I want to sit on this chair. I'm not dropping down with my upper body. When I start down, I just want to sit on that chair and just feel that. So I get this nice action going on with the lower body. I'm not thrusting in like that. So I'm just kind of sitting down on that chair. And what this does, when I'm starting down, quiets down the hip action. You can see my hips are still closed. I'm getting the separation in my knees. I'm not doing this business here where I'm spinning backwards. I'm starting to move from trail side to lead side. There, I'm just sitting on that chair, there. And now from this position here, club drops down, it's in the slot. I can rotate forward, and I start to rotate against that chair. So I'm getting this good pelvis rotation, and then going through and around to the finish of the swing. What it looks like from the other side. Get set, rotate back, I'm just going to sit on that, and then turn. So again, it helps, gives me that action for that pelvis and hip turn, so you get this sort of action going on here. So it's easier to turn when I maintain my posture a little bit better rather than thrusting in like this. That's really hard to turn when I do that. So this just kind of helps give me that natural hip turn. I can feel it back and through. And I can even, I can make some swings doing that. I'm just going to put it behind me here. Get set. I'm going to do a couple little practice swings, no ball, up to the top, sit on it, and then rotate through. And then I finish, fairly close to it. Again, a little bit of hip thrust isn't a big deal. The key is to keep rotating and turning the hips properly. Here, sit on it, and then rotate through. And I can even try to hit a few doing that. I'm just going to make some nice little easy 3/4 swings. What I'm trying to do is just feel the action here You can see as I do that dropping down, the club drops in the slot here, and I've got this nice position here to deliver the club into the ball. Back. Boom. I can feel that little sit and then rotate through. So the chair just kind of gives you some feedback. And then for the forward part of the swing, all good players, when they're moving forward, I'm just going to set this up against my instep. Again, if you're on the range, you know, you can use a shaft stick, one of those alignment sticks. You just stick it in the ground straight up and down here. And then I got this little bit of a gap here between my lead side and the chair. You know, all good players, and as we saw with that video, Hogan, you know, starting down, they move back toward the target. You know, their lower body, their pelvis and hips they'll shift 4 or 5 inches toward the target, and then they'll rotate through. You know, that shifts the pressure from right to left, and that pressure shift is early in the transition, early in the downswing. So that's really what that hip action does on the downswing, is moves that pressure from right to left, from your trail side to your lead side, and that sets you up to rotate through it and make good solid contact. If I don't get here, it's hard to hit the ball solidly. You'll hit behind the ball, you'll hit it thin, and you're not gonna have a lot of speed. You know, you're gonna really struggle with good solid shots. So I'll do a few without the ball here just to get a feel for it. So I'm gonna rotate back, I'm gonna rotate to it, and then turn. Back, I can feel that just a slight little bump, and then turn against it. Boom. Boom, and then I can finish there, and I can feel it. I've moved from the backside through to the lead side with that good hip rotation. And I can try to hit a couple, you know, get set, get myself in position here, make a swing, boom, move toward it, and strike the ball. So I get that action, boom. And I just kind of brush it and turn, just like that. Just like that. So give the chair drill a try to help you with some feedback for how you're moving those hips. Can't guarantee you're going to move like Ben Hogan, but it gives you some feedback so you can help improve your own swing. Barry from Over 50 Golf. Golf does not need to be complicated. Have some fun and let's keep playing.